It's not easy out here. Not even a little bit. Nobody gives a fuck about you. Nobody. All the people that I've helped in the past, that doesn't mean shit. Doesn't mean anything.
I used to believe this. Nobody gives an F about me. I allowed that thought to ruminate in my mind over and over again until it took control of my life. It made me feel isolated, stuck, and worthless. And because I believed it, I pushed people away. I stayed in survival mode, and I didn't ask for any help. But here's the truth. That thought, it was a lie. And if I had the knowledge to be able to recognize that lie for what it was back then, I would have been able to get out of that situation a lot quicker than I did. My brain was simply playing a trick on me. But in this 4-step process that I'm about to go through, this research is based on Dr. Jeffrey M. Schwartz's book called You Are Not Your Brain, where he talks about how to overcome unhealthy thought processes that come in your mind. So let's get into it. So step 1, relabel. So in the step of relabel, what you're doing is you're recognizing the thought for what it is, a deceptive brain message. So whenever that thought comes up in my mind, nobody gives an F about me, and it starts looping inside my head, I don't try to fight it. I don't try to change it. Instead, I relabel it. And when I relabel it, I'll use a term such as mind wandering. I'll say that to myself, I'm just mind wandering. Or I'll say, you're ruminating again. This takes the sting and the power out of that thought so that I can then focus on going to step number 2. So step 2 is reframe. Once you've relabeled the negative thought, you want to change your perspective on that same negative thought and reframe it as a thinking error. You want to not identify with that thought. Instead, you want to realize that that negative, deceptive brain message is not you, it's just your brain coming up with that. The thought, nobody gives an F about me, is an example of all or nothing, which is a thinking error. This is a distortion that forces you to see things in extremes. So for example, good or bad, success or failure, abandoned or loved, without nuance. This negative thinking error kept me trapped in a vicious negative cycle that did not allow me to see the full picture of what I was actually going through. By reframing the thought as a thinking error, you separate yourself from it. This makes it easier to move to step number 3, where you shift your focus and take action instead of staying stuck in the cycle. So is this resonating with you so far? Have you ever had to deal with negative thoughts like this that are similar to what I'm explaining to you, or your own unique negative thoughts? If so, drop a comment below. I want to hear your experience. And if this is helping you shift your perspective on how to deal with these negative thoughts, please like and subscribe so that the YouTube algorithm can push this video to more people that need to see it. So in step 3 is refocus. And in refocus, you're shifting your attention to wholesome, productive activities, even while negative thoughts persist. So going back to that same negative thought, after I would relabel that nobody gives an F about me, and then I would reframe it, I would go to the 3rd step, which is refocus. And focusing on a wholesome, productive activity for me was actually going to the gym, getting outside of that truck, going to the gym, spending time in the gym, doing a workout, running, doing whatever it took to get my mind out of that negative area that I was in. I would also either go to the bookstore and read some magazines, or I would go to the bookstore and play some chess games. Whatever I could do to interrupt that negative cycle, that negative thought process that was ruminating in my mind, and replace it with a positive activity that's wholesome, that's what I would do. So basically, the key is to take action and refocus on something that supports you instead of breaking you. And the more that I engaged in these positive actions, the weaker those deceptive thoughts became. It took some time. It didn't happen overnight. It took some time of constantly practicing the 4 steps. But as I continued to practice, the deceptive thoughts, their power got less and less and less. And I was able to replace that negative looping, that negative thinking process with more productive, healthier, wholesome activities, which produced a healthier mindset for myself and allowed me to think more clearly and focus on changing my situation instead of ruminating in that situation. So step 4 is revalue. And revalue is the acceptance that these deceptive thoughts are still going to show up, but they don't define you. Instead of trying to force those deceptive thoughts away, you want to think of them as bad brain messages. And in doing so, you also don't want to you want to refuse to let those deceptive thoughts dictate what your daily actions are going to be. You know, for years, I was stuck in that situation with those negative thoughts because I tried to drown them out with unhealthy habits. It wasn't until I made these 4 steps second nature that things started that my situation finally changed. And it wasn't easy. I had to constantly practice these 4 steps every single day until it became second nature to me, where as soon as a thought came up, I knew, okay, let me go ahead and relabel that thought. Let me go ahead and reframe that thought. Now let me find a refocus activity, a wholesome activity that'll break that negative relooping cycle of that negative thought. And then let me revalue the whole situation and know that I'm still going to be dealing with negative thoughts. They're still going to be there, but they don't define who I am, and I don't have to accept them, and I don't have to let them dictate my actions. Until I made that 4-step process my way of life, things didn't change for me. And it took a while for me to do that because I was stuck on believing those negative thoughts, and it kept me in that endless loop, for years, just sitting in that situation. But I did eventually overcome that, and going through these 4 steps for you, whatever your situation might be, it's going to help you to overcome your own negative thoughts if you simply go through the 4-step process. So if you take nothing else from this video, remember this: you don't have to believe every thought that pops into your head. So here's what I want you to do, just some quick action steps that you can do for the next 2 days. So the first thing I want you to do is catch one negative thought when it comes up and just write it down. Just be aware of whatever that negative thought is. The second thing is I want you to label it for what it is: a deceptive brain message. Third, I want you to reframe that negative thought and remember that it's not you, it's just your brain coming up with those deceptive brain messages. And then refocus on something productive whenever those negative thoughts come up. Don't try to force it. Don't try to change it. Don't try to force your way out of that negative thought. Just let it be there. Just observe that negative thought. But then go ahead and refocus on a wholesome activity that will interrupt that negative pattern, that negative endless loop that constantly keeps feeding in your mind. Whether that just be breathing, doing some mindful breathing, or just going for a walk. So do this once today and then again tomorrow. The more you practice, the easier it gets. So if you found value in this video, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And share this video with someone else that you think may need to hear this message. Thank you.